Alright, good afternoon guys, CFP here, and this is Survival Living. So today we are changing the water pump on the 99 Tahoe. First thing we've got to do is we've got to get this shroud off. This is a fan shroud, so we have access to the fan assembly that goes to the water pump. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Hopefully we'll get it done before it gets dark. We're starting late in the afternoon here. I had no other options, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pull this electrical wiring up. Break this over out of the way. I am not disconnecting the battery or anything like that, guys. Just going to move that way we can take the shroud off. So we do have these bolts up here, and we got two sets of bolts down on both sides. I am going to grab a longer extension. Be right back. Okay, right tools for the right job. Now these are 10mm bolts on this shroud. I don't believe we're going to have to remove the lower part of the shroud, just the upper, which is a lot easier for us. Well, I just found out that looks like we're missing bolts on the shroud on this side. Did not notice that. I've got a hose here. Alright, so yeah, it looks like we're missing a bolt there, and there's a bolt over here on this side here that's missing. This hose here, I'm going to disengage that and take that off. Alright, that's not really any major issues, but I do have some extra bolts. I'll probably take that metal clip right there and transfer up there so I get a better connection here on the shroud. That and there should be okay without it. So now that those are took care of, go ahead and get these up top here. Now before I forget, guys, I want to give a special shout out to Eric Patrick. Eric Patrick had just signed up yesterday for our channel membership. I definitely do appreciate that. That does help us out a lot, guys, with those channel memberships. Again, those are never required. That's just extra way of showing support. We try to get extra videos out to people, just for the members only, things like that. But again, thank you so much for that. And I also want to give a shout out. I did not check and see if it's okay to say your name yet, so I won't, but you feel free to go ahead and put it in the comment if you want to, buddy. We received another very generous PayPal from another one of our subscribers. That does help us out, guys. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit before we draw our first check. It's not required, guys. I mean, we're not sitting broke, but it does help us out with me had been laid off. You know, I guess it's been a month. I got laid off in September, so yeah, I think September 6th was my last day at work, last night anyway. So yeah, I kind of dragged my feet on the whole unemployment thing for a while, but I didn't stay on waiting around too long on that. But it does help us out, and we definitely do appreciate it here at the house. Alright, so this should come right out. There we go. I'll toss this over to the side. Alright, so make sure that we are in focus here. Alright, yes, we are. This is our fan, guys. This is the clutch for the fan. Fan here. Water pump pulley. The water pump's back there. Now, the easiest way to do this, if that large nut in the back gives you problems, let's go ahead and take the undo the bolts on the water pump and take the whole assembly off. Take this to a vice grip so you can lock everything down, and then break it loose. I believe that we will not have to do that. I've had to in the past with other vehicles. I'm hoping this one here does not give me any trouble, but If it does, I do have access to a large vice grip, large vice clamp, and we will be able to lock it in place. So it is recommended that if you change out your water pump, that you also change out your clutch assembly for your fan. I don't do that. The only time I change out the part is if it's bad. Okay, there's nothing wrong with this one. It's got oxidation all over it, but it's what's on the inside of what counts. Alright, so let me go get the wrench and we'll try breaking this thing loose.
And I just learned how to use a voice activated camera.
Get out of here.
GoPro delete that. Oh, god damn it.
GoPro, stop recording. Alright guys, so that's my brother. I had to have his help out here. I only had 2 hands to work on this. So we did get it broke loose. Alright, now we use our 36mm wrench. We put it on the large nut. And now we used our 10mm wrench for the leverage. What we did, the bolt's on the pulley here, and I'm going to bring the camera in closer for you guys can see this, but we're going to use the 10mm to lock onto the bolt of the pulley. Alright, and then we're going to use a cheater wrench. This here is a 19mm. We're going to lock into place there, and that way we can actually put leverage on the pulley and the pulley won't move, while we use the 36mm wrench with a hammer to bust it loose. And it really doesn't take much to bust these things loose, guys. In the shop, when I work dealership, basically we have a special tool, which is basically a wrench with a slot in it, and it locks down on it, and we got a bar that goes onto our air tools. And if you use an air chisel, you hit it with that, not the chisel part, but it hooks up to the wrench, and it just breaks it loose for you. So we did get this. Let me get the camera in closer so I can show you guys this without dropping everything. Ha ha! Alright guys, so let me go ahead and pull a wrench here. As you can see, the rusted color looking nut here, that's a 36mm. Our silver nuts right there, silver bolts, that is our 10mm. So what we did, went ahead and put a 10mm wrench on these just to lock it in place, and then we used our cheater wrench right here, and we just set it into the jaws like so. Alright, and we applied downward pressure onto this while we hooked up the 36mm onto the nut, and we broke her loose. So now that that's in the way, we're gonna move our, like the hammer. I made that hammer a while back. I was working a trailer job. I built trailers, tilt trailers, utility trailers, things like that. It was an alright job. It wasn't the best paying, but it was alright. So we'll go ahead and pull this assembly off here now. Now that this is loose, it should actually spin off pretty easy. So right there. Oh, nope, not yet. My brother's looking at dirt bikes. Said he wants to have a dirt bike for SHTF. He said that he sees the need for fuel conservation during SHTF, so he's thinking about a dirt bike. Well, I told him he needs to go ahead and get him an EMP shield for his Jeep. That way he has a Jeep that runs, and if he gets a dirt bike, same thing. But fortunately, guys, we just signed up for the EMP Shield affiliate program. I am still waiting for the appropriate links and everything for that, but I did get accepted. As you guys know, we've got an EMP Shield sitting over there. Swing this camera around. Right there, EMP Shield. We also have one for our solar. We need to get one for our generator. We do not have one yet. But luckily, once I get our links for EMP Shield, guys, it is an extended 50% off. No, it's a $50 off on your purchase for EMP Shield. So it's kind of a universal discount code with everybody that's actually with affiliate links with them. So yeah, we went ahead and signed up for that, guys. We got approved, so we're just waiting for a appropriate code and everything. I don't know yet. We don't have one set up yet. It might just be like either the channel name or, you know, CFP Rocks. That's the one that you can use over there at Personal Caliber Clubs. You guys get discounts over there with all his products. So we might just keep the discount code the same and do it that way. I'm trying to get my fingers down in there so I can turn this nut. I love being married, but sometimes wedding band gets hung up on stuff when you're trying to work. So I work with my hands a lot, and usually the stuff I'm working with is unforgiving, does not bend. So, alright, there we go. Looks like it's free now. Yep. So we'll spin this off, guys. Whoop. Now when you pick up your clutch assembly, guys, don't flip it over. This thing, they say the clutches are full of fluid. I don't know. I mean, it's got a seal in the back, but I've always heard you keep it just like that. So that's how we're going to store it off. You see the fan right here? So if you ever got to replace the fan, you got to do all this same stuff with a clutch fan assembly. And you just take those nuts off, put the new fan on, bolt it back down. Let's get this out of the way. Alright, so now we got our fan up out of the way, and we're looking at our pulley for our water pump. This is the threads that that large nut was recessed on, tightened on there. Alright, so we've got 4 bolts right here. These are 10mm. We're going to bust these loose. We're not going to take it off just yet, but we're going to break them loose, break them off. Not break them off, we're going to break them loose. Alright, before we loosen the belt tension here from the belt tensioner over here. We're going to leave the belt on here. It provides a little extra tension on the pulley. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to take the pulley off so we can actually have access to the water pump a lot easier and get to everything. See if that fan was in the way, guys. We've got a radiator hose down here. We got these these water pump hoses here. It's just stuff's in the way, so you just go ahead and pull everything up out of the way. Alright, so like I said, it is a 10mm. Alright, that one there's busted loose. Usually just a quick jerk will do it. If you got a tough one, you can always put a wrench on it just like this, and then you can tap the backside with a hammer, and sometimes you can just hit it with the palm of your hand and it'll break it loose. But these here are not too tight, so we're able to just jerk really hard and swift and break these loose. Now these are now loose. There's still tension on this, so now we are going to release our pulley. It should be straight down. Yeah, there we go, straight down. We'll go ahead and take our belt off. I am going to go ahead and remove the belt entirely. Release that. That way the belt is out of the way. I do know how this belt goes back on. Back in the day, some of the older vehicles, they didn't really have good decals in the engine compartment showing where your belts are ran and things like that. So back in the day, I used to use Polaroid cameras, especially when I was dealing with electrical things like that, vacuum lines, to take a picture. That way I had something instant to take a look at. Now with the digital age and cameras easily available, cell phones, I always recommend taking a picture before you start digging into something. It makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to remove these and get this pulley out of here. Wrong way. See how this pulley moves around so easy without that belt? That's why we left it on while we were doing everything. And I'm hoping not to knock the camera off and stuff like that, because I do have it right here in the radiator well. There we go. So hopefully don't knock it off. Alright guys, so we have all 4 nuts out. All 4 bolts. Now sometimes these pulleys are seized onto the water pump assembly, so you just take a hammer and knock her loose. I already did that prior and just set it back up there so I wouldn't be hitting so loud on the video there. So you just take your pulley off, and this is your water pump. Okay, set that pulley down there. Now we have a lower radiator hose right here. This goes to our radiator. We've got a hose that runs underneath this here. I don't believe this is going to be in our way. This right here, I don't believe this pulley is going to be in our way. We'll disconnect, and we will disconnect right here as well. This is for the water pump outlets. We've got 4 bolts on both sides. There's 2 on each side for the water pump itself. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and undo these. Best tool, they do have a specific tool that crimps these. I do not have one anymore. I lost some of my mechanic tools over the years, but a pair of channel locks works very well with these, so that's what we'll be doing. Alright guys, so to get access to this back water hose here, we went ahead and busted up this pulley loose. This is something that's just in our way. Unfortunately, I did not want to have to remove anything, but turns out my fingers are too big. These hoses are not in the best condition behind there. They're actually a little swollen. I will probably be replacing them. I'm going to inspect them really well. As long as they're not bad, as in my standards are bad, they'll be reused. Sure is recommended that you go ahead and replace all that. Alright, so there we go. This hose right here is the one I'm talking about. It's got the clamp back here. It's hard to get to. It's got some swelling on the end, but the hose itself looks good. This hose looks pretty good as well. Alright, so get my pliers here. And we will attempt to get this out. Oh, damn it. Slipped out. Move that down a little. Nope. Just lock that in place. That sucks. Try it again. Like I said though, there is a specific tool for these type of clamps. I do not have one, but I've used channel locks many of years. It can be done. Slide it up. There we go. Alright, I'll do the same on this one. Those actually need to be replaced. They are rusted up as can be. Now this is the part you got to be careful on, guys. Breaking this off of those pipes. You don't want to chew up your lines. Usually just a little twist on it will break it loose. Don't let these teeth slide around on these hoses. Alright, make sure you got a good bite on it and the actual hose moves with it. You don't want to chew through these hoses. Alright, so we got water there and we got water there. Okay, now we'll undo this bottom one without hitting the camera. Sorry guys, if the camera's moving, the camera's right in my work zone. There we go. Oh, I about knocked off the camera. Alright, same process. Open these jaws just a little bit more. Alright, so using a 9/16, we're going to attempt these nuts. Alright, that's one. See if we can't feel our way in for the second one. That feels... no, hold on. Make sure you have the right nut on the right size socket on this stuff, guys. You don't want to round off anything, especially in that position down there. If you got the wrong size socket, you don't want to cause yourself more problems than what you need. Alright, that just broke loose. Alright, I'm gonna have to move the camera so I can get onto the other side. Alright, now we're gonna have to find these. There's one down there. And again, guys, I do apologize if I hit something that makes the camera move. It is what it is. And there's the other one. Okay. Alright, so these are busted loose. Now we're just gonna ratchet them all out. Now, as far as the thermostat, I changed the thermostat in December. Yeah, December of last year. So we're good there as far as thermostat goes. And I just dropped one of my nut. Excuse me, my bolts for the water pump. You don't want to do that for the pulley. Set those out of the way, so we don't want to lose anything. So then I will be up the creek. Alright guys, so let me get back with you when we get all these things out. Okay, so we've got our 4 bolts, guys. As you can see, it looks like we have either sealant. Actually, this looks like Teflon tape on these. I've never used Teflon tape. I've always used a sealant, but it definitely looks like Teflon tape on these bolts. Now, the reason why they have this, guys, is because some of these bolts that are going into the water pump there goes past the water pump, and it doesn't just sit in the block. It actually sits in a water jacket or something like that. So that's just to keep the water pump from leaking around the bolts. So be mindful of that. Make sure you take that in consideration if you're changing out your water pump. Pay close attention to your bolts, see how they are lined out. If they have a sealant on them, make sure you put a sealant back on. All right, so let's go ahead and bust this thing loose. Now, sometimes these things come right off. Other times you're prying on them. So, actually, that one there came right off. Now we got to disconnect our hoses from our piping there. Sorry if the camera's moving around. Oh shit, I about dropped that. Excuse my language. Alright, we'll set this off to the side. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a close look down inside the front of the engine block. Oh, by the way, if you ever have to change the timing chain or anything like that, you're doing the same process. There's your timing chain cover right here, guys. Harmonic balance. You got to get all that stuff out of the way just to even access certain parts. But luckily, 350s, most V8s are very simple. We've got a lot of grime and stuff. I will be cleaning this off just because I don't like having a filthy engine and having gummed up grease everywhere. I just don't like that. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and send the camera down here. As you can see up here, this is one of our water jackets. This is for the driver's side of the water pump, and we've got the passenger side back here. Alright, I am going to test this out and make sure there's no gasket on there. I do have wire brushes, things like that. You always clean up your area. Alright, and it's one of the reasons why we're going to degrease this. We're going to clean this all up and make sure that we don't have any gasket, which is, if you wind up with an extra gasket on your water pump, get ready for it to leak. I think the gasket actually went with the water pump, but we're going to clean it just to make sure. So that is a V8 without the water pump. Alright guys, so hopefully you guys can see this. You see this thing right here? This is part of a gasket. Alright, I'm in here with a razor blade trimming all this old gasket material. Some of it did go onto the water pump and some of it stayed on the block itself. So we got to trim all this gasket material off, make it nice and clean. That way our new gasket, when we put it on, it will have a good seal and we won't have any leaks. It's a little bit tedious work, but it is highly necessary. You have to make sure it's done correctly or you'll be leaking like a sieve. Alright guys, so we're fixing to apply our gaskets onto our water pump. This one here is Permatex. the Right Stuff 90-minute dry. Permatex makes some very good gasket sealant. They did send us 2 universal gaskets, basically as an additional hole. If you got the room, I went ahead and dry ran these, made sure that I got plenty of room. If you got the room, don't bother cutting these off. You don't want to damage the gasket. There's enough room for this to go against the block without getting hung up on anything, so we're not going to worry about those. We are going to go ahead and get the water pump here. And remember, these hoses here are our tops, so I want to put our gaskets with the extra hole downward. Alright, now I want to put the Permatex on the part itself and not the engine block. Permatex comes with a little puncher on the inside there, outside the cap, so we'll go ahead and punch that. This particular one comes with 2 sets of nozzles, so we want to go all the way around our bolt holes. We want to make sure we get enough on here. You don't want a lot of your Permatex going inside your water pump jacket. You don't want extra stuff breaking loose, but you do need to go all the way around your bolt holes very well. And we're not leaving it just like this, guys. We are going to be smoothing it out by hand here in just a moment. Just want to get the majority of this on before we do that. I should have cut the hole just a little bit bigger for my nozzle. Alright, so we got that done. Now I'm going to take this, our finger here, I'm going to smear it around, make sure that we've got plenty on the face of the water pump itself, well, on the landing for the gasket. If it goes on the outside of it, that's fine. You don't want it going down inside the water pump. So we just smear it around just like this. Alright, that is that. Find out where I put my rag. Oh, there it is. Clean my fingers. Alright, so I'm going to take our gasket, line it up over our holes, like so. And same with this one. Again, our extra hole was going downward since we already did our dry run and made sure that our gasket would fit like that. Alright, while this is setting up, we don't want to leave it, we don't want it to dry like this, but it's just setting up. We're going to go ahead and clean these bolts, get all this old Teflon off, and reapply new Teflon and get it ready to install. Alright guys, so we got our gaskets on our water pump. We've got our bolts prepped. We went with Teflon tape just to make sure that everything goes back the way it was. Since I took the stuff off of the other one, it was Teflon tape. So that's what we went with. Alright, trying to get this water pump up in here. Alright. Now I'm going to take one of our bolts, line her up through, get it started. And we're getting it started by hand. Sure, I've got a socket on, but I'm tightening it up by hand so we don't cross thread anything. So I don't want the water pump dropping and losing any of the gaskets. These hoses are in the way. Alright, that's got that one started. I'm going to jump on the other side and get one of these bolts started down here. Hopefully. Not being able to see where the bolts are sucks. Well, I mean the bolt hole. I apologize, guys. It was a camera failure. It's pretty muggy out here. Maybe the GoPro got hot. Anyway, we're fixing to install our hoses and stuff. Right now, we just got our bolts ran through. They're not fully tight. I want to get these hoses in place before we tighten everything down in case I have to take the pump back off. So we're gonna put these hoses on. I'm not worried about the lower radiator hose yet. I'm gonna make sure these top ones are able to get in position and locked in place. And then we're gonna tighten everything down and start rebuilding everything, get everything up and running. All right, guys, so we're gonna have to put this pulley back on, which will go right here. Now these pulleys got their own built-on bearing and stuff. That's why it's so easy to take off. And again, with everything, start threading by hand to begin with. Make sure that you've got nothing cross-threaded while you're doing it. I believe that was a 13. Yeah. All right, let me grab a 13mm wrench. Socket, I mean. Had to go dig for it, but I found it. All right. Ratchets make everything a lot faster. Okay, so we got our snug. What I like to do with these pulleys is to grab my wrench, give her just a little tap with a hammer just to help make sure she's tightened down, because you don't want to lose anything. All right, now that bolt that runs to this pulley is just pulling down into the block behind it. The pulley itself is on a bearing, so it should be just fine the way it is. All right, so next up we will be installing our pulley for down here, getting that on, getting it bolted down, and then running our fan belt back on and installing our fan again. All right, guys, so there's a little lip here that we've got to set this pulley on, and we also got to line up our bolt holes. So let me get the nuts, the bolts here. Set them right there. Take one, we kind of got it eyeballed in place right there. I see threads, so that should be pretty freaking close. All right, so we got one started. Work our way around. Try to find the other one. Oh, there's one right there. We'll go grab that one. All right, 2 out of 4 is not bad. There's that one, and our last one. All right, so we'll go ahead and run one of these down. No different than changing the tire. Always run one down so you got somewhere to start. Go ahead and get our ratchet out. I'm going to snug it as best we can. We're going to have to put our belt on to actually get everything tight. All right, so we've got our pulley secured, tightened down. Move this wire, this goes over the radiator shroud. Let's see if we can tuck it back there. Got our belt on. I believe it's correct. I really didn't remember. It fit, so that should be pretty close. Alright, let's put that out of the way. Alright, so next up we got to put our fan and clutch assembly back on. That will go here. Now the splines did have, the threads did have this protective covering on it. You just twist it right off, it comes off. Or grab a hold of that little lip there, take that off. Alright, I'm beat. So what else we got here? Got all of our hoses hooked up onto the water pump. That is done. And that's it, guys. Alright, just making sure that we got an even fit on our pulley with that lip. Everything seems to be good. So let's grab the fan. And we get this thing mounted. Set it up here. Now hopefully we can start it by slowly rotating. As long as the nut stays in position, should be able to. If not, it's going to be some tedious finger work. Alright, starting to snug up, but we were able to get it on. Okay, perfect. So the fan is now tightening down. Eventually it's going to stop, and we're going to have to get the wrench out and hold the pulley like we did when we pulled it off. As of right now, she went all the way. Alright, let me get the wrench out. Alright, so now the pulley's wanting to move. So this is where it gets spun, because now when we go to tighten, we got to be careful not to loosen our pulley bolts, because now the force is going the opposite direction. Let me get the wrench here, double wrench. When you're using double wrenches like this, guys, make sure that you are seated very well on the bolt. You do not want to round off any bolts, because it makes your life miserable afterwards. Make sure you don't damage your radiator moving big wrenches around. That would suck. Yep. There we go. And there we go. Let's got that situated. This does have to be snug, guys. You do not want your fan coming loose. And our pulley nut just came loose. That sucks. Alright guys, so we have our clutch fan assembly back on. We've got everything going here. Looks correct. Alright, so now we're going to put the shroud on, and then we're going to top off our radiator, crank it up, let it run. So, enough blah blah, let's go ahead and get to it. Move that razor blade that I used for cleaning those gaskets. Alright, should just snap right in. I always start everything fingers first. That way I know nothing's getting cross-threaded. Everything stays down. This doesn't really take a lot of pressure up here, guys, anyway. Since we are missing a few bolts on this radiator shroud, which I'm not too happy about, and there is none on that side, we're going to substitute this top one here and put down there, just to make sure our shroud stays together, since we're missing a few of these. That is, we're not in it. And there's giving me a hard time. Something all over the bolt. Alright, get one down here. close-up of my eyeball. That's awesome. I'm gonna need a long extension. There we go. That'll work. Get sweat out of my eyes. Down here in Florida, you got sweat and gnats in your eyeballs. Like all the time. Well, that is as dry rotted as can be. As you can see here, that's what I was trying to run the new bolt through. That would be why there was no bolts over here. That entire side is chewed up. Luckily though, these radiator shrouds just help with airflow. I will probably drill through and just zip tie that side. So, since it's screwed up, the one wrong right here, put this one in. All right. Get our little hose here that we unhooked. Put that back. Luckily though, the broken part of the shroud does not affect the fan blade in any way, so that's good. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill a hole through this shroud. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. So you got a bolt here, and you had one over here, but it's gone now. The shroud here, that's what I'm talking about, guys. So this thing needs to be connected like that. Probably just going to drill a hole through both of them. Use this piece here, slide in place, that way I can lock it down with a nut. That way it's not sticking out like it is down there right now. Alright guys, that is that. It didn't take too long. Still got a little bit of daylight left, so that's good because right now we are topping everything off. We've got to fill up with antifreeze, get the mixture right, and we've got to burp the system, get all the air pockets out of it, which means we'll be cranking it up and letting pressure build up. I've left the pressure off from using the radiator cap, since I do not have a relief valve for the coolant system on this. Some vehicles you get a little bleeder valve to release air. This one here does not have one, so you actually may have to undo the radiator cap and let the air out, close it back up, and eventually the thermostat opens, and then you just top her off. So that's what we'll be working on for the rest, I don't know, probably the next 2 hours. Get it all topped off good. And then we will make sure we have no leaks. That is key. We reuse those old hoses. That's a possible spot for a leak. You know, they look fine as far as the seating and everything, so I think we'll be okay there. But yeah, that's how to change a water pump on a 350 for a Chevy Tahoe. Basically, most water pumps are the same. I mean, yeah, there might be something that you got to move, whatever. The process is the same, guys. So, works on this, work on just about any other vehicle. Yeah, nothing really to it. All right, guys, y'all take care. Appreciate you hanging out with me. And after I get this done, I'm gonna eat dinner and get some rest. Talk to you later.